Your car is one of the largest investments that you have. To help you maintain that investment and avoid unnecessary and often costly repairs, let me show you a few things that you can check yourself every time you stop for fuel. And if you have any questions about any of the checks that I demonstrate, just ask your mighty auto service professional. They'll be glad to help. Let's start by checking the engine's oil level. The engine oil is critical to maintaining the health of the engine. It lubricates all of the engine's internal parts. Now, it's not unusual for a vehicle to use about a quart every 2,000 miles, but consider that you get your oil changed every 5,000 to 7,500 miles, don't you? See where we're going with this? Running low on oil can cause severe engine damage. Now consider that most cars only hold 4 to 5 quarts of oil. You can see how important performing this check really is. Locate the oil dipstick, that is the measuring stick, and remove it carefully from the engine, paying attention to the tube it's coming out of. The very end of the dipstick will have some oil on it, so wipe that off with a clean cloth or paper towel. Now be careful. The dipstick and the oil can be hot enough to burn. Support one end of the dipstick with the handle and the other with the cloth, and then wipe the oil away. Reinsert the dipstick until it's fully seated and remove it once more. Notice that there are markings near the end of the dipstick. These will typically read full and add. Look closely at the end to see where the oil level is. It should be between the two markings. Now, if there's no oil showing on the dipstick, do not operate the engine until that oil level has been corrected. You could cause severe engine damage if you do so. Ask your mighty auto service professional to show you how to add oil to your vehicle, and most importantly, the correct oil to use for your application. And while the engine oil is critical to the health of your engine, it's not the only important fluid that you need to check. The engine coolant, more commonly referred to as antifreeze, can be just as important. Locate the coolant reservoir and note the level in the tank. There are usually indicator marks on the reservoir. You may even want to use a permanent marker to highlight them to make them easier to see. Now, just like the oil, if the coolant reservoir is extremely low or empty, that indicates a problem. Coolant doesn't evaporate, and if the fluid level is low, that means there's a leak somewhere in the system that needs to be found and repaired. And please do not try to correct this condition yourself. The coolant can reach temperatures over 200 degrees, and the system can be under pressure of up to 15 psi. If you try to open the system while the system's hot, it can cause severe burns. Rather, rely on your mighty auto service professional to service and repair the system for you. Next stop is your vehicle's brake fluid. The reservoir for the fluid is usually located on the driver's side of the engine compartment all the way in the back. It too has level markings on its side, and the fluid needs to be between the two. Now, this too is a system that if you see the level is low, you do not want to add any fluid to it. It's perfectly normal for the level to drop as the brake pads wear. And if it gets too low, there's a sensor in the braking system that will turn a warning light on your instrument panel. If you suspect there's a problem, you can always rely on your mighty service pro to inspect the brake system for you. Now, there is one more critical fluid that I want you to be aware of. It's one that you may or may not be able to check yourself. It's the fluid in your vehicle's transmission. Whether you drive an automatic or a manual, the transmission in your car also depends on proper lubrication to work correctly. And just like the engine oil, a low level of fluid in the transmission can result in severe damage. Rely on an experienced service professional to inspect the transmission fluid whenever you take the vehicle in for maintenance. Your vehicle is one of the largest expenses you'll ever have, and it can last a long time if you take care of it. One way you can do that is to perform the checks that I've shown you anytime you add fuel to the tank. Another way, have your vehicle regularly serviced and inspected by your Mighty Auto Service professional.